Hello YouTube. Before you guys get all bent out of shape about the title of this video, I want you to know that this isn't actually my opinion. This is the opinion of a good friend of mine. And, originally, I was talking to one of my friends, I was with a couple people, and I was just talking, loosely about prepping and stuff. And one of them comes out and says, prepping's stupid. Why would anyone waste their time and money, buying up a bunch of stuff and preparing for the end of the world like it's going to happen? And like I said, it was kind of I was kind of shocked by his reaction at first because I was like, I kind of thought he had like the similar mindset as us, but he's actually on the complete opposite of the spectrum. And I feel that after we talked to him about a few things, he kind of opened up more to the idea. And I think there's a few reasons behind that. And, I think one of the main reasons is a lot of people confuse preppers with hoarders. There's really not too many shows about prepping. And the ones that you see, there's a lot of people on there that, in my opinion, go above and beyond what would be normal. And by that, I'm not talking about having enough supplies for your entire family. I'm talking about having, 10, 20, 30,000 square foot locations built out of all kinds of materials and just completely stockpiled with, I don't know, possibly a couple hundred years worth of food. Now, I don't know about most of you guys, but I don't think anyone would ever last that long. And I think that's a little bit overkill, but I mean, I guess it really depends on your needs. If you have an entire army or a family, a giant family, that you want to prepare all this stuff for, then I guess that could be one reason. And I'm not really going to get into too much one way or another. Like I said, I think some stuff is overkill. And I think some people see it as that, and they just automatically assume, like, every prepper wants to be like those guys. And that's not always how it is. It's not the same as hoarding, although there are some preppers out there that probably are hoarders and that just accumulate a ton of stuff. But, hoarding is completely different. Hoarding is just the collection of items, and it might be a similar mindset where they think, oh, well, I might use 10,000 rolls of toilet paper one day. Well, you very well may if you're making a, life-size sculpture of the Statue of Liberty out of toilet paper. But, yeah, I think that's one of the reasons out there is because people see that and they're like, I don't want to collect all this junk. Why would you collect all this stuff if you're never going to be able to humanly use it? Yeah, and that's one thing. And another thing that he brought up is, how can you prepare for the end of the world when you don't even know what's going to bring it about and what it's going to be like? And prepping isn't even so much preparing for the end of the world. I'm sure if you asked most preppers, they would say that they're preparing for, they've probably got some kind of event in mind, whether it's some type of war or EMP or virus outbreak or something. They have a general sense that there's a possibility that something major and catastrophic could happen. And, that's one of the main reasons why people prep. But at the same time, prepping is also about being prepared for localized disasters. And by that, I'm talking about, simple stuff, things that most people just disregard because they happen infrequently. But when they do happen, they can be catastrophic. So, for instance, one instance of that would be like a natural disaster, such as, depends on where you live, but it could be a hurricane or a tornado or an ice storm or, some other big natural disaster that causes problems in your area. And whether it's localized just to your area or it's a widespread event, it's possible that it could disrupt your lifestyle. And part of prepping is being able to be prepared for that. You never know when your power is going to come back on once it goes out. Could be a few minutes, could be a few hours, could be a few days, a couple weeks. It really depends. And, that's a very common occurrence. It's not like you could live your whole life without ever seeing a major storm that somehow disrupts our everyday lives. And, I don't think some of these people who are against prepping realize that. They just think that a lot of preppers are nuts and that they're all planning for the end of the world. But in reality, we're planning for everything. A lot of the stuff that preppers want to prepare for is the stuff that could actually happen. And then, like I said, in the back of our minds, there's always something that says there could be something even bigger happen. And we'll slowly build up towards, an ultimate goal. We have something in mind. But getting back to natural disasters, my friend was saying, well, if something happens, you can just leave the area. And the government will come through and they'll, bring supplies, and they're not just going to let everybody die. And, that may be true depending on the size of the disaster. If we look back a few years, it's one of the events I want to talk about is the blackout. A lot of areas were without power for just a couple of days, and others were out for over a week. And that's something that, if you would have asked anyone before that date and said, oh, you think the whole power grid on the eastern coast could ever go down? They probably would have just laughed in your face and be like, yeah, that's impossible. But it happened. And if you weren't prepared, then you'd notice that the stores quickly ran out of food and water and other supplies. And that's kind of one of the things that happens after natural disasters is people automatically will run to the store and try to get the things that they should have already had from the beginning. They'll start buying up bottled water like it's gold, and they'll start buying all kinds of food and pretty much anything else that they can get their hands on, flashlights, batteries. And unless you're one of the first people to get into these stores, you might find that you're not able to get them for yourself. So if you're ever in that situation, prepping's not going to look all that stupid anymore. Because while you're trying to fight crowds and, fight over the last couple bottles of water and some flashlights, the preppers have already got that stuff at home because they're prepared for that type of occurrence. And even looking at a little bit of a bigger event, if you look at hurricanes, what happened there were all sorts of problems. Even though the entire United States was up and it was just localized to that area, it was still very tough to get food, water, and supplies down to those people. There were a lot of people that were hungry. There were a lot of people that were thirsty. People were getting sick. They were passing out due to exhaustion. And there wasn't enough help. So even though the entire United States was up, it was very hard for the government to do anything about it because of the conditions. So the people that think the government is going to come to the rescue, they may be in for a very rude awakening. And I'm not going to get too much into this video, but that's just one example of how, even though we think we have this perfect system that can come to everyone's aid, that's not always the case. And it's just another reason why you should be able to prepare and be able to take care of yourself, because you never really know when that help is going to arrive and if that help is going to arrive. So getting back to some of the other points, when I started bringing up some of these disasters, even the guy I was talking to was like, yeah, that stuff's not going to happen to me. Power never goes out for very long. And same thing with that. And it's like, there's even other times where there's been occurrences with water. Perhaps a water main breaks somewhere. And let's say that happens, they automatically put out a boil alert, meaning that the water could be contaminated and that you have to boil it if you're going to use it, or you may not have any water at all. So again, people are going to flock to the stores and pick up all the water and everything that they can. And, there's people out there who say, that's fine, I live right by a pond or a lake or a river, so I've got plenty of water. Well, that's fine. But what if you have no power or no gas or something else? What if you can't take that water and purify it? Do you have enough fuel stored up? Maybe you have a barbecue grill that you can run off of a propane tank. But I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever tried boiling water on a barbecue, it takes a long time. And even if you have wood, do you have enough wood for however many days it's going to be out? So, that's just, something else to think about. Just because you might have a lot of water around you doesn't mean you have the tools to treat that water, to boil it, to make sure it's clean, or to filter it, or do anything. And that's just another aspect of prepping. If you think about it, there's a lot to prepping, and it's, just as simple as having a little Coleman stove or something around to be able to power a little stove just to boil some water to purify it. That is technically counted as prepping. So it's not always these giant build-outs and this crazy amount of food and water and storage, but it's being prepared. So, that's the biggest point I want to make is being a prepper doesn't mean you have to go, balls to the wall crazy buying every single thing you could think of. There's a lot more to it, and it's, more about the here and now with a little bit towards the long-term future, because obviously no one really knows what the future is going to bring. I'd say there's an extremely good chance that you may never have to ever even use your preps. And if you can, then that's awesome. But it depends on what area you live in too. If your area is more disaster prone, then you're going to have to be a little bit more prepared than everyone else. And just like the water, if you don't stockpile food, then you may be thinking, well, I've got woods all around me. I've got a lake. I can go fishing. I can hunt small game, rabbits, squirrels, deer if they're in season, whatever you can. But do you have the ability to do that without competing against others? And some of the people that even have little gardens in their backyard thinking that, this will be able to suffice, are you able to protect that? Are you able to defend from a group of people walking in your backyard and taking everything you have? So that's something else you have to think about. You have to be prepared for that. And then you also have to be prepared for what if you and all 1,000 of your neighbors are out in the exact same forest trying to hunt for small game or fish the same exact pond to catch dinner. It's just, there's a lot of little things that you have to think about. So even though you may be surrounded by woods and water, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to survive. And that's part of prepping as well. So it's being able to have those things on hand so that you don't need to run out and do that stuff right away. And there's a lot more to it as well. And like I said, you could argue every single little point, but it just really depends on what your preferences are. It's all about really being prepared for what you think can happen and what has happened in the past. And then that way you can be ready for if something big does happen. Like I said, when the power went out for the week in some areas before on the whole eastern seaboard, it took a long time for that to get back on, and there was a lot of store closures, and I'm sure a lot of people probably cleared up their pantries because after the first day or two, your fridge and freezers are pretty much shot. So you have to eat all that up right away, and then you're left with canned goods and stuff. So it just goes to show you never know what's going to happen. It could just be as simple as a power outage. It could be water contamination. It could be a water shortage. Depending on what area you live in, it might be hard to even get water. So there's just a lot of things that you need to be ready for. And that's pretty much what prepping's about. So, after having this huge conversation back and forth, he kind of understood that, preppers aren't these crazy people running around buying up everything they can. They're people that are getting ready for what has happened, what could very well happen, and then they've got the idea in the back of their mind that something big could happen in the future. And you don't go out and buy this, crazy amount of stuff without having some goal in mind. And I'd say most people couldn't even do that if they wanted to, because a lot of that stuff is very expensive. So Even though it sounds like it would be something that a lot of people do, I mean, you got to keep in mind, no one has thousands of dollars to go out and spend on crazy preps and stuff. So it's just a little bit here and there over time. It's not just, run to the store, buy every single thing you could think of, and then you're done. It's a constant mindset of, what's happened, what could happen, and, how do I prepare for this going forward? So that way you're not stuck out in the cold in the middle of winter if the power or gas shuts off, or an ice storm rolls through, or giant snowstorm, and you can't even leave your house to get to the store. I mean, these are all things that very well could happen, and I'm sure they have happened multiple times in certain areas. So you just have to be mindful of everything that happens around you so that you can properly prepare. So, I mean, I hope this video didn't offend anybody. Like I said, I'm not trying to attack anyone. If you are a prepper that has some crazy amount of space and stuff, I mean, good for you. Everyone's entitled to do whatever they want. This is America, and I don't condone anyone's actions, but I do see both sides of the story where, we may see something one way and then other people may see something in a completely different light. So, to that point, like I said, I didn't mean to offend anyone, but I hope this video helped shine some light on prepping and why it's important. Like I said, we're not a bunch of nuts. It's just about being prepared for, everything that could happen. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will be back soon with another video. Thanks for listening.